Just had a small heart attack off camera. It was sitting up here. I went to move the power supply and managed to put a little dent in the PCIe. Let's see if we can get it focused in here. I can show you guys. F in chat. Managed to bend it back. No, you focus back here. Oh, it's gonna be a pain. I kind of got it bent back, so hopefully it's okay. What's going on, everyone? Desktops Gaming here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we dive into the Liquid Freezer 2, but this time the ARGB edition. One of the most popular coolers on the market and best price, gets a little upgrade with some flair. Let's get into it. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, definitely drop a comment down below. Let me know if you like the video and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Definitely trying to grow this up as fast as possible. And of course, work with you guys, build a community here. Of course, to go with our Instagram over at Desktops Gaming as well. If you guys want to check out all the completed build pictures and close-up shots we do here, definitely head over there if you want to see more close-ups of that. Today we're diving into a build because I feel like it's been too long since I've done one of those. This one centered around the Liquid Freezer 2 from Arctic. Thank you again, Arctic, for sending this one over. Definitely like all of their cooling products as well as their MX5 paste, very blue stuff. All right, so let's dive into running down some parts here. Today for CPU, we're actually using the Ryzen 5 5600X. Not a super high wattage TDP part, but the highest one I had on hand at the time because getting parts is hard right now, and that's actually out of my personal rig, so it's sitting over there gutted right now. As far as the GPU goes, we're doing the 3070 here from EVGA. This is the XE3, also out of my personal rig. I feel like I've used the 2070 Super a little bit too much, so we're going into this one today. Since this build is considered, or we're trying to center it around airflow performance. So combining with the Liquid Freezer 2 ARGB edition here, we're actually putting in some of their P12 PWM RGB fans. These aren't ARGB, unfortunately. Couldn't get those sent over to me, so we got the RGB editions, but I think it'll still pair and look pretty cool with this Liquid Freezer 2. I think we're gonna mount it up top. 3 of these in the front, and then just a rear exhaust as usual. For RAM, we got some of the G.Skill Trident Z RGBs, just because I love the way these guys look. Still one of my favorite looking kits on the market. Just a 16 gig kit of those. And then for power supply, sticking with the case from Deepcool, we have one of Deepcool's power supplies too. This is the DQ850. It's a fully modular 850 watt, 80 plus gold rated power supply. So we'll be putting that in here today. Definitely should be plenty fine for all the components we're using today. I believe I just have my normal test boot drive on here, and we have an M.2 installed on the board as well. All right, well, let's clear this off and go and jump into getting this thing built. Go ahead and break down the case and everything and get it ready. So we're going to take the back and front off. One of the coolest things I saw with the CL500 from a video we did a while back when we first got it in, it's toolless panels on both sides. So you basically just have these little tabs here that are on each side of the case. That way they just kind of line up and then snap back in. You just have this one little latch on the side that locks it in place, and it's toolless, and then you just need to pop it back to open it. And the front works the same way, except on the front you have a little handle here that just lifts away from it, and then you can lift glass off. That definitely needs to be cleaned. All right, let's go ahead and get into getting this fully ready. Like I said, and I'll show you some more features of the case just in case you haven't seen this one before. And if I remember to, I'll link it up here if you guys want to go check out the original build we did in that. So case is pretty much ready to go there. I'm going to set all this out of the way. Just got to do a few more things on here. Let's go ahead and slide the mounting bracket back underneath. And I already have one bit of storage installed. We'll be putting in, I have a little SSD that has my main test programs and games and everything on it. So this is what the actual OS is installed on. And then, like I said, once we get it installed, we'll run some thermal tests and everything, which if you guys have seen my previous coverage on the Liquid Freezer 2, I don't expect much to change here other than having a little more fanfare. A little more fanfare with the RGB fans. I wouldn't subscribe to me either for that one. But we're going to go ahead and get it installed here. So we'll go and open the box up where we can get the mounting bracket and plate and everything on. I believe this one still uses the standard AM4 bracket for the back plate. And we'll go and open it up here. Actually, I haven't had this open yet. Take a look at everything inside and then get out all the mounting hardware. Look at this tiny little tube of MX5 they give you. See if we can get it to focus in there. Look at this little thing compared to the normal sized tube. Make what you want of that in the comments. It's nice to include some MX5 here in the box. That's cool. All right, going through here, looks like we have Intel and AMD mounting brackets. Taking everything out of the box here. I don't see any instructions. I'm assuming they want you to go to their site to get them. Or, oh yeah, there's a QR code on the back of the box here with online manual. So we'll scan that in a bit and see if that's just as easy to follow as it was before. Just kind of getting everything out first. We're probably going to do the AM4 offset mounting bracket on these, since I have seen data on that to show just by offsetting it a little bit over, you're actually covering closer to more of the CCDs or CCXs on the die itself for Ryzen processors, especially kind of 3000 series up. So we'll definitely see if that makes a big difference. We'll do the offset mount today because I believe we should have enough room around caps and everything to do the offset mount. All right, so let me go and pull up that manual and then I'll come back once I have all the hardware pulled aside. After giving the manual a one over, actually I'm pretty impressed. I do like the way Arctic kind of changed it around a little bit between some of their previous mounting methods. This is pretty much all you need. So we have the actual mounting brackets here versus other previous installations I've seen from Arctic where you kind of had to use little thumb nuts similar to these, but they would be threaded to hold the backplate in place. You actually secure the backplate down first. So these would go on, and they have two different mounting options, and we'll talk about that in a second because we're going to be doing the offset mount today. But basically how this is set up to work, if you're going to be going with AM4, you have this kind of dugout, kind of U-shaped one here. This one's going to be the bottom mount, and then the less dugout one there, less angled one there, that will be the top mount. So it's going to be sitting on the bracket like this orientation. And then basically we have little spacers that will go down in between the motherboard and these. We have 4 screws here, kind of longer screws to screw them in place, and it'll lock the backplate in place. And then we already attached the mounting bracket for the pump block combo here. It just has 2 more screws, more mounting holes there to hold these in place. They're pretty long, same size as these guys here. And then basically you just want to line these up with the outer bracket here, the one on the outside of each bracket, with every one here once they go on. And then they have 2 different mounting options for these. Today we're going to be going with the offset mount. So what that is for is AMD 3000 and 5000 processors are compared to previous generation. So the hotspots are actually a little further over this direction. So by doing the offset mount, you actually end up scooting the pump block combo over slightly. So you actually have part of the IHS exposed, but it's covering the hottest spot of the die still. Instead of kind of being centered in the middle of the die, it's going to shift over a little bit, and that will provide better cooling performance. All right, let's go ahead and get this mounted up. We'll give you a rundown of how this goes together. We'll finish the build, and then we'll do some thermal testing. Let's get into it. So now that we scooched up nice and personal, we can go ahead and start going over getting it installed on the board here, and then we'll leave it like that while we get everything else installed, and we'll finish the rest of the build over here. But I figured I'd walk you guys through installation process real quick. Pretty simple. First, these little plastic washers will go down in all 4 corners. The actual mounting plates will go on to lock them into place. We're going to be going for the offset mount. So for instance, on this one, hole 2 is counted on the top side of this one. So we'll line it up with the top holes here, and we'll go and just thread these into place. We have the top hole taken up on this one, which would be the offset mount, and the hole number 2 on the bottom one. Remember, the bottom one is the more kind of U'd out one here. This one's actually going to be slot 2, which is also on the top of this one, but you're looking at it from this way. So it'll basically push the mount a little further down. Don't know if you can tell the spacing from the camera there, but the back plate is secured in place. I could see the offset mount being an issue if you have a very large M.2 here or an M.2 cover on your motherboard, because it does bring it closer to that M.2, closer to the PCIe slots. It will aid in cooling this 5600X, but just keep in mind if you do have a beefier either heatsink here on your M.2, or you're using an M.2 that has a very large heatsink, has a decent gap there. It's hard to tell for perspective on camera, but I could see that in obstructing some of them, so that may be why you might want to look at different mounting options. And then once we want to mount the cooler on, we would just remove the sticker from the bottom. You have to remember to do that, and then basically line it up here. Of course, in our instance, it's going to be going in the top of the case. So we'll actually have it sitting up here, and then it'll come over like so. We'll run the wires out of the bottom of it, and then the outer holes here, harder to see there, but the outer holes here on the outside are the M4 mounts, and it would basically just go down on those like so. Of course, you would have thermal paste applied, and then you would put the little grub screws on. All right, we're gonna go through the rest of the build, go and get it built up, and we'll come back with some thermal performance. So after a little bit of internal conflict, I'm gonna swap cases. I'm gonna kind of call an audible here. The Cool CL500 is great, don't get me wrong, but the plate it has at the top does technically support a 240. The Liquid Freezer 2 is just a little too thick to go in at the top, and the way the fans are kind of run, I didn't want to have to rerun them to flip them to go intake from the front. So I'm just going to swap to a different case that has a little more support for a 240 this size, since it's very thick compared to most other ASIC brand designs, which is nice for better cooling, but it's a little too thick to fit in this guy. So I'm going to swap a case real quick, move everything over, and then we'll get back to testing this, because at the end of the day, this is what the video is about. So let's go ahead and swap the cases out. So it's the next day, and you can see we've swapped out the case. Sorry about all the lead up to that, and see kind of everything's a mess now that I had to swap everything back over, but got it installed in the this is one over from Dark Flash, the DLM21 mesh. Really solid case too. Like I said, I would have loved to use the CL500 there from Beepcool. I just didn't have enough room to fit it at the top. It will fit 240 rads up top, just not ones this thick, like I said earlier. But come back the next day to finish this up. We'll do some thermal testing on it as well. Mainly wanted to look at if it was any difference in performance, which I don't think it would be from the Liquid Freezer 2, not ARGB edition, but this one will look cooler. So we'll go ahead and power it up. I'll show you guys what it looks like, and then we'll dive into some thermal testing. So let's go ahead and click it on. Let everything light up there. I haven't even touched the RGB software or anything. And I even left the peel for you guys. I'm gonna come grab you guys and we'll do the peel on the front of the case. So we'll get up a little closer here where we can hear the peel. Always satisfying. Yeah, really cool case over here from Dark Flash. So we got the front 3 installed there. We went and put in some of the Arctic PWM P12 RGB fans. Like I said, these aren't the RGB editions, but still wanted to go all Arctic fans here. We'll go and open this guy up. So it just has a little magnetic tab on both of these sides. They both swing open, so it just has a little tab here you can grab. And swing that out, and you can lift it off if you want to do that. And we even have one more peel to do on the inside. We get 2 peels a day. You guys are in luck. That one is on there. Might be easier to take it off. You really stuck this one on there. There we go. A little tech ASMR for everyone. All right, so looking inside here, we just have the Liquid Freezer 2 ARGB edition mounted up here at the top. We went with the offset mount on the pump block combo. And then just a further look here at the DLM21 here. It's a very interesting case from Dark Flash. Like we built in it a while back. I believe I did a Halloween theme around this one. I think that's why these are still set in orange. But I still gotta go in and play with the lighting and everything, because that's still set to kind of RGB puke, and these are kind of defaulting to orange. I believe it's the same thing that the motherboard's set to, but just threw some easy DWA-fab cables here. I wanted to kind of match the gray to the kind of grayish white going on here. I had black and white, but they were a little bit too bright for this build, so we went with just the kind of silver and gray. And this case is pretty neat because it comes with this really cool GPU support bracket. So it actually just mounts in here See the bottom of the case, and I'll link up here if you guys want to see the original little Halloween build that did in this. It's been almost a year ago now, but it has a little support bracket that mounts to the bottom of the case. You can shift this forward and back, and then it just has a little clamp there that'll hold the card. But this video is not about that, so let's go ahead and dive into some thermal testing, and we'll see. We'll probably end up doing just some R23 and just seeing what kind of temps we get. And then I might do some time spy on the GPU CPU test and just see what it gets. Yeah, a little more realistic to a gaming scenario, since R23 is only going to be stressing the CPU. And typically your CPU is not pushed 100% while gaming, so time spy will give us a little more realistic number. So let me go and run some tests, and I'll come back with you guys and we'll talk about the results. So we just finished up with some testing, did a Cinebench R23 test as well as a time spy test, and like I say, let these guys run for a good bit. On the Cinebench R23 test, we did 30 minutes to test stability and everything, and I did it at 2 different settings. We did PBO enabled, which pulled all core up to about 4.5, a little over 4.5 gigahertz all core, and then I did a manual overclock as well, and then pulled that up to 4.8 gigahertz, I believe, all core, and then I believe that needed about 1.4 volts or so to be stable. I'm going to pull up my notes here. Just had a quick jotting down of notes as I was going along. Like I said, just have the cooler exhausting out the top here, 3 intakes here, and then exhaust in the back, so kind of matched-ish in pressure. All right, so let's go over the Cinebench R23 results. With PBO enabled, like I said, we were getting, like I said, around 4.5 gigahertz all core, and that was after 30 minutes, we're averaging around 60 C. And then I came back and tested it again. I wanted to see what it would do with the 4.8 gigahertz all core manual OC. And like I said, that required around 1.4 volts or so to stay stable throughout the entirety of the test. Like I said, I would still probably let that run a little bit longer, but like I said, it was plenty fine for that 30-minute run. At 4.8 gigahertz, we were holding around 76 C. So still not overly bad at all. Definitely plenty of airflow going through these. The fans never got too audibly noisy or anything like that compared to the intake fans. Like I said, the static pressure out of these is fine. What was the exact CFM on these? I don't remember offhand. Let me double check real quick. I don't remember offhand. Like I said, I'll have to check on their site. I'll try to post it down in the comments here. On the box here, it's showing up to 1800 RPM. I have no really full leeway to test that. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the Arctic line though. Like I said, these guys do stay pretty quiet, even with them running near 80% or so. They never got overbearing or anything like that. You wouldn't be able to hear anything if you had headphones on. And even sitting where I was in the chair, just had this hooked up to my monitor, I could hardly hear them kind of ramp up. I dialed the curve in to slowly increase over time. Let's go and jump into the time spy results, because those would be closer to more so with gaming. Just checking my notes here. On the time spy, with just PBO enabled, the same settings as before, the CPU got up to around 60 C on average, and I could see that being a little more standard on gaming. And then, like I said, with time spy, it's a little closer to what a game engine would do, and it's still even a little over that. So in most games, I could see this fluctuating as far as just PBO enabled, easily between 50 to 60 C, like I said, depending on what thread that application is taking advantage of at the time. And then we did the same test again, manual OC, the same 4.8 gigahertz we did earlier, and we saw it reach around 68 C. So it's still the hottest we got it to go, and stayed there pretty on average. But again, I could see even if you're running at that, all 4.8 gigahertz all core, and say something like game, I definitely couldn't see that going anywhere between 55 to maybe up to 70 C at its hottest. So yeah, guys, like I said, hope you enjoyed the overview here of, like I said, hopefully how these look, and of course the Liquid Freezer 2 240mm ARGB edition. So I was a big fan of the first one. I definitely like the new mounting design they went with this. The offset mount definitely helps on Ryzen 3000 and 5000 series. Since the chiplet design is kind of slightly moved over, the offset mount does move it over to the right. So you have a little bit of chip, or a little bit of the IHS that is not covered by the cold plate, but that's fine. You don't really have to worry about it being centered, because the majority of the heat's going to be closer to that side anyway that the offset mount moves it over to. So guys, if you have any questions, definitely drop them down in the comments below. If you want to see more up-close shots of this build, check out our Instagram over at Desktops Gaming. And of course, we have more builds and stuff to review coming up. So big thank you to Arctic for sending that over today, and appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. Appreciate you guys for stopping by. Take it easy. Doing a build kind of centered around airflow today. We have the Deep Cool. What is this? Oh, CL500, Jesus Christ.